Hello everyone. In this session, we'll continue our Google Cloud fundamental topics. We'll talk about what is virtual private cloud, followed by lab sessions later. Now, the first step of any cloud project is to create a virtual private cloud environment or start with a default VPC, which is created as part of the project. A VPC is a virtual network similar to physical networking infrastructure. It provides a logical way to group and isolate compute resources like virtual machines, database, GK clusters, and so on. And Google Cloud promotes the concept of a global VPC that span across regions and all resources uses the internal network without going through the public network, thereby reducing latency and making data transfer efficient. And each VPC network consists of one or more IP address ranges called subnets. And subnets are regional resources like US East 1, US East 2, and have IP address ranges associated with them. Now, in many projects, there is a requirement to share a VPC network across multiple projects. For instance, let's assume a database project residing in a VPC region controlled by a separate team, and other projects residing in their own VPC need to access the database using an internal network without going through the public network. In this scenario, the database project can be deployed in a shared VPC network. And other common scenarios which I've seen is having a shared VPC network to centrally control any networking resources like subnets, routes, firewalls, and use internal IPs for communication securely across project resources. And this typically happens where you have a large security team that manages the central compliance and regulations of the network. Now, as part of your network requirements, you would create a VPC firewall rule that allow or deny connections to or from your virtual machine instances. The rules are tied to a specific VPC network, and you can enable or disable traffic to your VM instance based on the protocol like HTTP, TCP based on destination ports, sources, and destination instances that it could apply to, like a particular VM instance. And we would go through the steps of creating firewall rules as part of a labs. And by default, you should block all traffic to the instances and selectively apply the required rules and target it to the required instance. Usually, the firewall rules should be audited as part of your security reviews as a best practice. Next, let's deep dive into the lab.